As we consider enterprise resource planning systems, I really need to tell you some of the advantages and disadvantages of the systems. So first, let's list out some of the advantages. Advantages of ERP systems. One, it's a totally integrated system. And that makes sense, right? Because you've got this single database that everybody's getting access to. So no longer do we actually have to send data from one silo to the next. We're all integrated together. Another one is we have the ability to streamline different processes and workflows. Actually, we're going to talk more about this because not only is this an advantage, but it also can come up as a challenge. The thing about an ERP system is that not only is it just a data system, but it also focuses heavily on how you go about doing your business processes. And so if, for example, you buy SAP, they'll provide for you an entire encyclopedia of best practices on your different workflows or processes. So for example, you think payroll, and you want to cut payroll every 2 weeks. SAP is going to have how you go about doing this and what is the most efficient, the best way of doing payroll. And by the way, their system will actually enable you to accomplish that. And so not only then do you get the system, but you actually get best practices and you have the ability then to improve and streamline your workflows. With the integrated system is easily sharing data. And we've spoken on that. This will actually help us improve efficiency. Because we're now streamlined, we're now sharing data. It gives us the ability to better track and forecast. Better track and forecast. All of these things can help us then lower cost. And in this, the cost, we're going to have to significantly lower our cost to justify against the cost of the system, which is actually one of the disadvantages. Oh, and I'll mention that shortly. And then last, because of the CRM, we have improved customer service. Improved customer service. These are some of the classic advantages of an ERP system. So absolutely, why not? Why do we not just do all of this? Why not just jump in and say we're all in? Well, we do have to weigh out the disadvantages. And so some of the disadvantages of the ERP system . What are they? One, and we'll talk about this, customization may be limited. We'll actually expand on this. Part of the issue is if your business is doing something that's really unique, it may be that the ERP system can't handle that. And depending upon the system that you purchase, you may not have much of an ability to customize. Another, and this goes with the streamline, is that you may need to re-engineer your business processes. It may be that how you're doing business, how you're conducting business is actually not the most efficient. And so if you then adapt an ERP system, you may be forced to actually change the way you do business. Now that could be a good thing because then you're streamlining it, but you also have to consider the upfront costs of the organizational change. So that's a disadvantage. Another, these things are just expensive. These are not insignificant. A company that is one of the largest implementers of of an SAP ERP system is spending millions of dollars per month, and they actually have a 10-year implementation window plan. So the amount of money that they're spending is not insignificant. Now the company is a very, very large organization, but you have to consider that when you actually bring in an entire organizational system, it is not going to be an insignificant cost. Depending upon the type of ERP system, the not SAP or Oracle or Microsoft, but again, there are many different vendors, your tech support may be shoddy. Meaning it might not be a good tech support. So that's something you also need to consider. And then lastly, depending upon the system as well, it might be too rigid. And again, what I mean is, if you're doing something that is unique, that the ERP system can't handle that, then the rigidity of that ERP system could become detrimental to what it is that you need to accomplish. So for example, I was working at managing a small hotel, and it was a boutique hotel, kind of a motel from the 1950s. Now again, this is sometime in the 1990s, and they wanted to keep the motif of the 50s, but what was really going on was it was actually a 1950s motel, meaning their bookkeeping, their reservation, all of that was by hand. And so what they wanted to do is develop they wanted to bring in a system that could handle things like reservations and handle inventory. And so they evaluated some different types of software. And at the time they thought, well, why? We're just a small business. They were part of a bigger business, but they were running it as a small business. And they said, why don't we just buy QuickBooks? So QuickBooks is a nice little accounting package. You can do billing, you can do invoicing, you can do payroll. They have inventory management system. But think about this though. The difference between inventory in a warehouse and inventory in a hotel, there are some significant differences. For example, in a hotel, if you don't rent that room, then you lose that inventory for that night. Yes, the room doesn't go away, but your ability to rent on that date is specific to that date. And so every room that you don't rent is inventory that ultimately disappears. Whereas if you've got product sitting in a warehouse, if you don't sell it, you can just wait until you sell it the next day, right? The product doesn't go away. But in the hotel, any non-sold room is lost revenue. Well, I tell you that because the inventory management system that was built into QuickBooks could not handle the type of inventory that hotels or airlines, for example, right? Same thing goes with an unfilled seat in a plane. When those doors close and the plane takes off, the airline can no longer sell that seat. It's lost revenue, and that inventory disappears. And so QuickBooks was far too rigid to be able to handle for the specific business process that was required for this small hotel. And many smaller ERP systems might also then be too rigid. And so these are some disadvantages, and then you have to consider, as you evaluate different systems, can the system accommodate what your business is doing? And so the next thing we'll talk about then is how to evaluate whether or not the ERP system will accommodate you.